Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be wild. Today's video features battles submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Zayet, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now this team is anything but the ordinary. It features a Great League Rayquaza, one of the rarest Great League Pokemon you can possibly get. You have to trade for a level 15 Rayquaza, and it's an incredibly low % chance to actually get it below 1500. The Rayquaza is paired up with a Shadow Kanto Ninetales that is not running Weather Ball, it's running Energy Ball Scorching Sands, and to round out the team, the final Pokemon is Aegislash. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and he picks up a terrible lead in the first match, Shadow Ninetales into Pidgeot. Normally this lead would be a fine matchup for the Ninetales, but obviously he's not running Weather Ball, so he's actually completely walled. Luckily, the opponent gives him a lifeline, safe switching into Gastrodon, and Ninetales grabs a shield advantage with Energy Ball before sending in Great League Rayquaza. Rayquaza always going to be no shielding, as Gastrodon's Body Slam really not going to do a lot of damage. Rayquaza will win charge attack priority, but is instead going to look to overfarm. Rayquaza can give the shield back, but double up on Dragon Ascent, and Rayquaza is obviously going to be winning charge attack priority over Pidgeot by an absolute mile. So Rayquaza doubles up on Dragon Ascent, Gastrodon gets one hit KO'd, opponent brings back in the Pidgeot, but they don't go for the CMB tie. Pidgeot will get one shot as well here. Pidgeot calls the bait, and that's going to cost them. In comes a Shadow Empoleon. Empoleon is able to get the full farm down, but realistically, there's just no path to victory now for the opponent because there's the Aegislash lurking in the back. Now, Aegislash is pretty severely nerfed on the new system, which is where these games are being played, just by the fact that Mimikyu exists. But this opponent obviously didn't run Mimikyu, so now in comes the Aegislash. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to game number 2, Shadow Ninetales into Shadow Marowak. This is an incredibly bad lead. This team is ABA weak to Mudslap. The Mudslapper is here, and this is going to be a very tough game to win. Rayquaza puts up the shield as they go for the Rock Slide. In comes Jellicent, but Rayquaza is able to double up on Dragon Ascent. Dragon Ascent is just such an incredibly powerful move. I believe it's 110 damage for only 45 energy, so it is just truly monstrous damage output. That's going to force Jellicent to double shield, switch timers up. In comes Aegislash, hoping for the Surf Catch, but unfortunately unable to get it. Instead, Jellicent will be able to hit for big super effective damage with Shadow Ball. Jellicent going to threaten a knockout here, as I don't believe Aegislash will be able to hang on. Aegislash will put up the shield. There's a pivot out. In comes Furret, and Aegislash is just going to fire off the Gyro Ball right away. Gyro Ball is going to hit for some pretty nice damage onto the Furret, but importantly, is going to make it so that the Furret honestly doesn't get a lot of farm, as Aegislash will get farmed on very quickly. In comes the Ninetales. Furret will be able to land a Swift, but Swift doesn't really do a lot of damage here. Oh, they actually opt for Brick Break. Brick Break not going to do a lot of damage either. In comes Rayquaza. It's a simultaneous KO, and it's going to be Ninetales versus the world. Back in comes the Jellicent. Energy Ball should take the knockout here, if I'm not mistaken. Jellicent falls. Back in comes the Marowak. Marowak should be 3 off, and the Ninetales outpaces Shadow Kanto Ninetales, putting on a show. Energy Ball KOs the Kanto Marowak, and that is a good game. We see a disastrous lead in the next match, Shadow Kanto Ninetales into Como-O, but I guess now that this Kanto Ninetales is running Scorching Sands, this matchup is not so bad. Now, to be clear, the moveset to run on Kanto Ninetales is definitely Weather Ball, Energy Ball, but this trainer, thinking outside the box, going a little spicier on the moveset, and I do appreciate seeing a trainer who's trying to run something a little bit interesting. In comes a non-Shadow Dusknoir. Dusknoir gonna fire off Shadow Punch right away. Rayquaza now down 2 shields to 0, but should be able to get those shields back or just pick up the one-hit KO with Dragon Ascent. I'm not quite sure what's happening for the opponent. I did not see an Astonish go through, so I don't know if they just have poor internet connection or what's happening there. Okay, yeah, it looks like the opponent's internet is definitely struggling, as they are not getting all the Astonishes that they're supposed to. In comes the Ninetales. If this is Dynamic Punch, I assume Ninetales will get knocked out here, but it's only going to be a Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch will not take the KO. In comes Talonflame, able to transfer the Incinerate and send in Aegislash. But Aegislash, I don't know if it can quite pick up the one-hit knockout onto Talonflame. I know against the Shadow you definitely can, but the regular Talonflame does have a bit of bulk to it. I'll be honest, it's been a bit since I've run Aegislash. I don't remember if this picks up the one-hit KO or not. Shadow Ball does take the one-hit knockout. That's big. In comes Dusknoir. Dusknoir gets the farm down, but Ninetales has the Energy Ball loaded and will be able to secure the KO. So Energy Ball will take the knockout onto the Dusknoir. All that's left in the back is the very low-health Como-O, and this team just keeps finding a way to win. You absolutely love to see it. We move to the next match, Shadow Ninetales into Shadow Ninetales, and this is where the Scorching Sands tech is going to pay off. Scorching Sands, no shield, picking up the one-hit knockout, and that should basically just end the game on the spot. Opponent does have a Licky in the back, but they do throw on alignment. That's going to give a free Ember over to the Kanto Ninetales. Shadow Ball lands, but Ninetales, I believe, should even be able to survive one additional rollout to make it to a second Energy Ball. The pacing without having Weather Ball is actually pretty poor on Kanto Ninetales, but the coverage has definitely provided that surprise nuke factor in these early games. Now I imagine we see Aegislash get brought in here to absorb energy, but no, opponent banks the move and sends in Tinkaton as their final Pokemon. Aegislash is very strong into their backline, but unfortunately the star of the show, Rayquaza, can't really do much of anything in this endgame. Opponent didn't overfarm a lot, and that's going to allow the Aegislash to fire off the Shadow Ball right away and get a massive amount of free energy with 3 Psycho Cuts while in Blade form. Now Aegislash will put up the shield, go back to shield form, and with all that extra energy, we'll have a very clear path to doubling up on Shadow Balls. The win condition in this moment is pretty simple. Double up on Shadow Balls, but make sure to click Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball will still knock out the Tinkaton, but what it will do is cover for a catch onto Licky. And there it is, they go for the Licky catch, but Gyro Ball was thrown. Gyro Ball is going to be no shielded. Licky tries to call the Shadow Ball, and that's going to cost them. Back in comes Tinkaton. Oh my goodness, what a bad manners catch. And the reveal, it's a Great League Rayquaza in the back. Rayquaza catching the double resisted Bulldoze, opponent in absolute shambles. They're going to fire off another Bulldoze, and Rayquaza just does not care. Rayquaza will actually fire off Dragon Ascent. The opponent should not be at 1 HP here, so it won't KO through the shield. They will put up the shield, but man, Rayquaza triple resistant Dragon tailing down a Tinkaton. You absolutely love to see it. We move to the next match, Kanto Ninetales leading into Azumarill. This is a pretty good matchup for the Kanto Ninetales and the Zeros, as Azumarill is never going to be able to make a Hydro Pump before back-to-back Energy Balls are available. So, if they throw before Energy Ball number 2, it's always guaranteed to be a resisted move. In this case, just going to be the play rough. Azumarill will easily get knocked out here by the Energy Ball. Are they willing to put up a shield? No, they are not, and Kanto Ninetales wins the lead. In comes Morpeko. Morpeko is going to be winning charge stack priority, and Kanto Ninetales is just going to fully let itself go. Aura Wheel takes the knockout. Now they see +1 Morpeko, and this could be a pretty big problem. In comes Rayquaza. The Dragon Tails are adding up, and the opponent does throw on very poor charge stack timing there. Rayquaza puts up the shield. Pretty easy Psychic Fangs bait for the Morpeko. Rayquaza just going to continue the farm. Oh, terrible charge move timing from the opponent. They led through an entire Dragon Tail, and that's going to make the farm down for Rayquaza a lot easier. In the back, it's going to be a Marowak, and even with all the energy on Rayquaza, this is still looking like a pretty difficult game to win. Dragon Ascent gets the first shield, going to overfarm, go for Dragon Ascent number 2. This is the non-Shadow Marowak. Can non-Shadow Marowak actually get one-shot by a Shadow Ball? I guess we're going to find out. Aegislash hits the field. Bone Club will hit for super effective, but because it's bulkier as the non-Shadow, it also won't really do a lot of damage with Bone Club. Back-to-back Bone Clubs are going to be launched at the Aegislash, but Aegislash able to tank it like it's nothing. Aegislash reaches for the Shadow Ball, but the switch timer was up, and in comes Morpeko. Morpeko is going to get knocked out by the Shadow Ball. Will the switch timer come up here? No, it will not. In comes the Marowak. Oh, there it is. In comes Rayquaza. Rayquaza able to outpace, not by much, making it to the Dragon Ascent. Dragon Ascent, one-hit KOs that Marowak, and somehow that game will end in a win. Unfortunately, Marowak's back for revenge in the next match, this time as the Shadow and this time on the lead. This team being AVA weak to Mudslap is seeing a massive amount of Mudslap, and that is making things very difficult. Opponent sends out a Shadow Jump Flop, and this is a bit of a risky bait here. Gonna bait with the Breaking Swipe. The Breaking Swipe is gonna be shielded. Opponent throws on alignment, and this can only be an Energy Ball. Rayquaza's still gonna put up the shield. Oh, it's actually an Aerial Ace. That is a move that I haven't seen on Jumpluff in a very long time. Energy Ball received a massive buff this season, which means Jumpluff just ditches Aerial Ace altogether and should run Energy Ball plus Acrobatics. Dragon Ascent will pick up the one-hit KO onto the Jumpluff, and the opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back as Furret. Rayquaza fires off Dragon Ascent, able to pull the final Protect Shield, and then it's time to send into Aegislash. Aegislash loves the Zeros. Furret banks energy, sends in the Marowak. Aegislash reaching for the Shadow Ball, and this is going to be so long. Good night to the Marowak. Marowak should be one-hit KO'd here by the Shadow Ball. Back in comes the Furret, and I really like to play to pivot out and send in the Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Ninetales is going to be able to absorb whatever Furret throws. Furret going to go for a Brick Break, trying to ramp up their damage. This Energy Ball is going to be doing some pretty nice damage out of the Furret and firmly put them into a range where Gyro Ball will secure the KO. Furret can't even get the farm down here. They're forced to fire off the Swift. Furret goes for another Brick Break. I wonder if this is one of those Brick Break Trailblaze Furrets. I have seen a few of those around. I don't think this is a particularly great meta for Furret either way, regardless of moveset. There's a lot of Pokemon out there that just completely shut down Furret. Aegislash is going to be able to tank that Brick Break no problem. Make it to the Gyro Ball. Honestly, even a zero bubble Gyro Ball would probably KO here. But for due diligence's sake, get a full charge Gyro Ball, KO Furret, and get the win. Kanto Ninetales into Gourgeist in the next match. Thank goodness the Gourgeist pivoted out, because Gourgeist probably beats Kanto Ninetales with this moveset. Opponent safe switches into Licky Licky. Energy Ball is going to be getting the shield, but does not get the debuff. Opponent overfarms massively. They did throw an alignment, bluffing a potential Earthquake, but no, it's just going to be the Body Slam. Another Energy Ball comes out from the Kanto Ninetales. That Gourgeist could be very problematic in the back, because Gourgeist energy does go very far into this team once the Ninetales has been removed. Licky Licky able to land the Shadow Ball, but it's not enough. Ninetales barely clinging to life, as it's able to make the Energy Ball and take the knockout or pressure the final shield. Licky Licky is going to no shield, but unfortunately, I think we're going to see this team get swept by Gourgeist. Gourgeist should be able to pick up the one-hit knockout with a Shadow Ball onto Rayquaza. Rayquaza in a massive amount of trouble. The shield goes up, Gourgeist goes for the Shadow Ball, but the win con has arrived. They pivot out, they send in Carbink. Little did they know, if they just stayed in with the Gourgeist, they were guaranteed to win the game. But they pivoted out, they sent in the Carbink, and now Carbink has been sent to jail. Aegislash is just such a wall to Carbink. I'm amazed the opponent has not top left it already. They have to know the writing's on the wall in this one. Aegislash reaches 100 energy. That's back-to-back Gyro Balls. Aegislash transforms into the Blade form. Gyro Ball picks up the one-hit KO. Back in comes the Gourgeist to be instantly met with the Shadow Ball. Now the opponent gets to choose Shadow Ball or Dragon Ascent. How do you want to get KO'd? They choose Dragon Ascent, and I can't blame them. Dragon Ascent picks up the one-hit KO, and that is a good game. We move to the next match, picking up a terrible lead, Shadow Kanto Ninetales into Primeape, but the opponent pivots out. They try and catch a Weather Ball onto their own Ninetales, and they're about to get crushed by a Scorching Sands. If the opponent knew this was not a Weather Ball Kanto Ninetales, then the flaw of the moveset would have been exposed. It is terrible pacing, but they assumed the Ninetales had Weather Ball. They tried for a catch on their own. They get wrecked by a Scorching Sands, and now Ninetales has completely eliminated the opposing Ninetales. Back in comes the Primeape. Primeape does have the Rage Fist loaded. Can Kanto Ninetales hang on here? Oh, it's a Cross Chop. Well, Rage Fist may have been survivable. A Cross Chop definitely would not have been. In comes Shadow Jumpluff as the final Pokemon. Rayquaza is going to guarantee the first shield by firing off this Dragon Ascent. And then it's just time for Aegislash to win the game. Aegislash hits the field, and Jumpluff just can't do anything here. This is the Shadow Jumpluff. It's going to hit a lot harder than the regular, and even the Shadow Jumpluff is just absolutely miserable. They went for an Energy Ball, fishing for a debuff, but Aegislash is just completely unbeatable at this point of the game. Another Energy Ball, another no shield. This one does get the debuff. Aegislash gonna farm up and fire off energy right before it reaches 100. This Shadow Ball will do a ton of damage onto the Jumpluff. Jumpluff will put up the shield. Now Aegislash is gonna shield right back. This is going to put it back into the shield form. It is still at -1 defense, but realistically, it can just farm back up to 2 more Shadow Balls. Opponent realizing there's no way out, and they will concede the match. Picking up a terrible lead in the final match, Shadow Kanto Ninetales into Shadow Swanna. Swanna is insanely strong into this team, so I think this is going to be a very tough game to win. Energy Ball will get the shield. In comes Aegislash. Swanna banks back-to-back Aqua Jets. In comes the Diggersby, and unfortunately, I think this game is probably over. Barring some kind of major miracle, I just really don't see a way out, because the Swanna just has near infinite banked energy. Aegislash will put up the shield as Diggersby goes for the Fire Punch. Aegislash can now look to absorb a Scorching Sands and just overfarm massively. The opponent actually overfarms a ton, and that actually allows Aegislash to fire off the Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball, I imagine, will not knock out Diggersby here. It would have been pretty close, but that's actually a very nice play. Able to save the Aegislash and get the catch and sneak onto Rayquaza. It is just going to be a Fire Punch. In comes Florges. I think Florges might get one shot here. It's going to be very close. Rayquaza charging up, going for the Dragon Ascent. It does not take the knockout. Florges barely able to hang on. Florges, I believe, throws on 9 Fairy Winds here, so they should be 1 away from the next Chilling Water. Unfortunately, Chilling Water will do a lot of damage onto the Kanto Ninetales, so Aegislash is going to have to be brought in here. But the opponent still has so much stored energy on that Swanna in the back that this game still feels like a very difficult game to win. Back in comes the Diggersby. Fire Punch is going to connect. The Aegislash is debuffed, which means Gyro Ball is probably not even going to take the knockout here. Aegislash changes into Blade form. Gyro Ball does not take the knockout. Forced to go for the catch onto the Ninetales. But unfortunately, it's still just too little too late because there's back-to-back Aqua Jet stored on the Swanna. The opponent's energy management in the game, unfortunately, was just too good. Back in comes the Swanna. They don't throw the energy. They pivot out. They try for a catch. Did they just find the lose con? Energy Ball is going to be locked in on the CMP tie. The opponent may have just found the only lose condition in this game. They had back-to-back moves, but they never threw them. Energy Ball lands. Swanna is going to fire off energy. It all comes down to this. Can Aegislash go for a charging down on Swanna? Swanna is very low. In comes Aegislash, and they're barely able to hang on. Opponent almost found the only lose condition in that game. They had back-to-back Aqua Jets. They could have just thrown them and guaranteed the win, but they overfarmed. They tried to catch when a charge stack was not available, and in doing so, man, they took a guaranteed win, and they were just a fraction of Swanna HP away from that game ending in defeat. All in all, these were some very, very fun battles, so many thanks for the battle submission. That is an absolutely wild Shadow Kanto Ninetales moveset. While I was streaming the other day, Z's Wireless mentioned that pre-ELO, he ended up trying this moveset for a little bit. This moveset does have some very fun surprise factor, but obviously, your neutral matchups become substantially worse as the Kanto Ninetales without Weather Ball. Matchups like Fearow, Togekiss, Malamar, matchups where you just win by completely outpacing things and dominating them in the twos, you now completely lose because you don't have access to Weather Ball. So in the long run, the standard moveset of Weather Ball, Energy Ball is definitely going to be preferred, but just purely for some fun sets and the surprise factor, this moveset was able to catch a few trainers off guard, a few trainers switching Kanto Ninetales into the mirror just to get obliterated by Scorching Sands. But enough about that spicy Kanto Ninetales moveset, let's talk about the Great League Rayquaza. After watching Rayquaza fire off Dragon Ascent after Dragon Ascent, man, I really hope that I'm able to get my own Great League Rayquaza one day. It's definitely not a Pokemon that I would consider good in the Open Great League, just because unfortunately it is very frail, and even though it can output insane one-shot damage with Dragon Ascent, it unfortunately has the combination of being frail and, by today's standards, slow to get to charge moves. 12 turns to get to your move, even if it's a nuke, is slow by this current meta standards. Now, personally, when it comes to the September meta update, I would really actually like to see large-scale nerfs, where most every move ends up getting its power level reduced, just because power creep has been a continuing issue in the meta for a while. So that way, some spicier things that rely on 12 or even 14 turn pacing could actually have a place in the meta again. I'm going to be doing some trades for level 15 Rayquaza at the World Championships at the end of August, so fingers crossed I end up getting lucky, get the 7% chance, and get a Great League Rayquaza of my own. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much, and until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.